Hello, so this is just a fun little bit of a chat. Absolutely nothing special or important here. I'm just here to talk about, I've started, so I have been single for like a year now. I've been holding off. I've been kind of purposely not trying to do anything for a while now. I went on like a coffee date and then realized that I'm not ready for dating right now. I'm just not. I'm gonna hang off. I'm gonna hold off. But the whole time, all right, I have been kind of like in the loop of the quote unquote like modern day online dating scene. And not that I'm gonna be like dating people over Discord or something. Generally speaking of like Hinge, to be honest, like strictly just like Hinge or any like dating apps. I've been hearing that it is absolutely awful, that it is the trenches. It is a horrible time and a horrible place. And I'm genuinely curious what the scene looks like. I am really curious. Yesterday, me and my friend went out. We took some photos. I set myself up a profile, and I started looking just to see what it's like. Now, I don't have too much to report back on. I'll report back on it later whenever I have information, whenever I have info. That's the same thing. I just said the same thing again. But I'm quite curious how bad the trenches are, especially as a guy. I have heard it is absolutely horrible as a guy. I've heard of stories of like groups where men will just get together and they'll go over their attempts at dating online, and it'll be like months before they get even close to like a single date or something of the sort. So I'm curious where I stand in the pool of everyone else who just is dead dry with nothing. I mean, I've heard the same from women too. That dating online is just an awful experience. Now, granted, I've also heard that women. Now, I have no proof of this. I don't know what it's like being on the other side. But I've also heard a lot of the time that women more often will go through their likes and sort through those than actually start finding and liking other men, which I am not really sure how that plays out, especially on something like Hinge where you're like given a limited amount of likes every day. I can't see, well, no, I take it back, because you can pay for, like, you can get the subscription service to like an unlimited amount of people. So maybe there are just like more guys who are hunting for longer than women are that might end up in that result. I don't know. I just started. I'm a little baby. I know nothing. I genuinely can't imagine that it is that bad. I think the only thing that there's two things. There's two things that I can imagine with being in the trenches. It is a lot of people who are in these scenes who recognize or have learned after being in them for a while that it is really easy to move on to the next person, so they don't spend very much time supposedly being like stuck with one person and like actually making the relationship work, because they can just say, oh, okay, this isn't perfect, this isn't 100% perfect, I'm going to move to the next one. Or counterpoint, well, let me finish that statement. For some reason I decided to jump, which leads to, a whole lot of short-term relationships, or like ghosting, or just like completely, I guess that's ghosting, and completely ignoring the person after like the first date, something like that, right? I feel like it'll lend to that situation a little bit more often than finding someone in the wild. But the second one, and I don't know if Hinge or any other dating sites filter through this and handle this. I'm sure they do. It's got to be really easy. If a person isn't active within like a week or something, don't show their account to anyone. But there's also like, I have the suspicion maybe that it also might just be full of accounts that people don't use anymore, because the goal of these platforms, despite what the companies want you to do, the goal of these platforms is to be on them for as short as time as possible. And so I can't imagine that the pool of people who are actively using the platform is huge, because the goal is to be on there for the shortest amount of time as possible. Now, I can conclude that yes, it could be the possibility that actually using these apps is a detriment to your dating life, because the companies themselves want you to stay on here as long as possible. They want you to pay for their service as long as possible. They want you to pay for roses. They want you to pay for the ability to look at likes. They want you to pay for the ability to like more people in a day. They want you to pay for all these features, and you're not going to be paying for it if you have a match. That's not going to work. That is bad for their bottom line. So I can only imagine that there's a plenty of number of factors that can lead to the trenches being the trenches, especially with how I have heard modern day dating is. And granted, I have no clue. I haven't technically been dating for, honestly, like 6 years now, 7-ish years. It depends on what you would conclude like the end of the quote unquote dating phase for my first relationship was, because I wouldn't have called, you know, like the majority of that time dating. We were like together. So anyways, I'm about to find out what it's like. I'm about to find out what it's like. I'll report back. I'll report back with any information I have. I'll report back if I succeeded. I'll report back in 20 years if I failed. I mean, probably, I don't know what time period I'm going to mark as like a failure, probably like a year. And then also, I'm not just going to be looking online. Like that's just going to be the backup. You know, that's just going to be like the passive income on the side. Maybe that's not going to be where I'm primarily looking. So, hey, maybe there's two competitions. There's one of if I as a person can win or lose at the online dating scheme, or there's the secondary competition, whereas if the online dating scheme will win or lose against IRL. Like, surely I have significantly more confidence in IRL. Granted, not that I'm going to be trying super hard on either front. I am strictly only here on the off chance that I find someone who's like who's worth my time. But in the meantime, I'm not like focusing on it. So like it really is, the only reason I'm there is passive income. That's literally it. Just on the odds that between now and whenever I actually really cared, like really bad, to start searching really hard, I didn't miss the person within the here and the now that actually would have been perfect, that I just passed up because I put in 0 effort instead of like maybe 10%. But if I find that person between then and now from the 10% of effort, I will put in 100% of effort into the relationship, because that's just how it's going to be. That's how it's going to be. I'm not actively looking, but if it happens, then I will be trying. Anyways, I'm going into the trenches. We'll see what comes out of it. Maybe I grow a beard and get significantly more wrinkles than I already have. I don't know. We'll see. Bye-bye.